Welcome to this video demonstration of the Reality Extension Pack by SimCoders, specifically for the Cessna Skyhawk 172. My name is Tim, I'm the Uncertified Pilot. I believe that there is a student pilot in all of us, and that's why I love to demonstrate the thrill and the educational value of flight simulation to develop real-world flight skills. And I do so by live video streaming my own flight simulator, training flights from my computer to Twitch and to YouTube, and to share my passion for flight training and aviation education in general with as many people as possible. And on that accord, SimCoders have invited me to do this video demonstration for you guys as a fellow flight simulator pilot, but also as a fanatic Reality Extension Pack user. So what I've decided to do for this demonstration is to just fly a basic traffic pattern here at Bermuda Dunes Airport, a very nice non-towered airport in the Palm Springs area in Southern California. And while we fly that traffic pattern, I can show you all about the Reality Extension Pack, all of its features. We might also fly to the north side here of the airport and leave the traffic pattern area to also demonstrate the stall behavior and the new stall horn sounds. So it's going to be a very basic demonstration, I expect. Now, for those who are new to the Reality Extension Pack, it does not include the aircraft. So it's just an extension pack. It's a plugin. It's a folder, actually, that you move to one of the plugin folders or to the plugin folder of one of your aircraft in X-Plane. And it just shows up here in the plugins menu, and there it is. It's a very basic installation, but it doesn't include the aircraft. There's only one product, I believe, that SimCoders offers, and that's the Super Cub package, which does include the aircraft model. But Reality Extension Pack in general is just an extension pack, as the name suggests. So that's important to know. And if you'd like to know for what other aircraft the Reality Extension Pack is available, then hop over to the SimCoders website, SimCoders.com, and have a look at their portfolio so you know what other aircraft are supported. Okay, having said that, let's also have a look at the changelog, because now version 3.2 is current. We've got new 3D sounds, very, very nice. So those sounds are now much more directional, and I will show you in just a sec. We've got advanced gyro wonder, very relevant, very important. You can now check the pitot tube temperature, also very important, especially if you are an IFR student pilot. You can now virtually touch the pitot tube to see if the pitot heat is actually working. I mean, you can flip the switch, but it doesn't mean that the system is actually working, and that's why it's a very important check. You can also do the same thing now with lights. Well, we could already do that, I guess, but now as part of the walk around, we can more quickly check the lights, which is very efficient and useful. Also one of the items there noted on the list. We've got a post-flight walk-around, also a more abbreviated walk-around where we can more quickly reach to the tie-downs and the pitot tube, so we don't need to go through the entire walk-around. That's great. The light check I already mentioned. A new stall warning sound. Also other new sounds, by the way. The battery spool sound. A lot of new and more optimized sounds. Really, really great. New hops hours are now, the hops hours are now saved in the airplane state file and restored next session. Also great. So again, what REP does, it turns your aircraft into a living, breathing airplane, which is really, really nice, and as it should be in the real world, right? So even if you're not flying, if you shut down your computer, Flight Simulator or the Reality Extension Pack remembers your aircraft, and as soon as you boot up your system again and you start flying, it knows that your oil quality is already degraded because you haven't been flying for a long time, and all kinds of other details there that any real-world pilot should consider when flying, and I think that's really, really great. And so in my opinion, a genuine personal opinion, I think that this Reality Extension Pack is a must-have for any serious student pilot out there. So especially if you're using flight simulation in preparation of your actual real-world flight training, be sure to check out SimCoders. I'm really digging this package. Okay, so that's the changelog, a lot of new features and also a lot of other improvements, as you can see on the list, which is just great, and also I think characterizes SimCoders. I love the fact that they are continually optimizing and expanding on the package, in contrast to some other flight sim developers out there. So that's great, and they are listening to us. Some of these features, including that post-flight walk-around, are actually inspired by us as users on my stream, where we are contemplating new great features, and SimCoders is thinking, well, that's interesting, let's build it right away. And I think that's really great as well. Yeah, that's about it. I'm flying Track IR, by the way. As you can see, these sensors on my cap, which enable me to be much more flexible when looking around the cockpit, or actually outside of my cockpit, to spot other aircraft or my airport or do some dead reckoning. So that's just what I always do when flying, so that's not part of the Reality Extension Pack, just to be clear. And I'm also connected to Pilot Edge. I always fly on Pilot Edge. It's an online multiplayer network where we can fly with others online, but also governed by real-world air traffic controllers. So we need to tune frequencies and chat with them like real-world pilots do, which is just amazing. Now, here at Bermuda Dunes, there is no control tower, but we do need to do position reports like real-world pilots should. So that's what we're going to do today as well. And that's about it. All else is just the default X-Plane 11 172 with the Reality Extension Pack. All right, let's minimize my webcam here and let's get flying. So first off, you install rep. What do you get? Well, you get this really wonderful menu, a neat, small, tidy menu. We've got a kneeboard with all of the checks that you need to fly the actual aircraft, which is really, really nice. Yeah, not much to say about this, but it includes everything that you need. Really handy. Weight and balance, obviously, also not that revolutionary, but very, very important. We can also add baggage and all kinds of other stuff. Very nice. This is really nice, the walk around. So we got a pre-fly walk around where we should actually go through all of the checks that real pilots go through to make sure that their aircraft is actually airworthy, right? That all the systems are working. So we can go through this entire flow, or this flow, I should say, counterclockwise, to make sure that all of those systems are actually working, which is really, really great. Well, in this newest version of the rep, you can see some additional buttons. Now we've got some abbreviated walkarounds that are only relevant for the post-flight checks or only for the lights check. Great. In the previous version, we needed to go through the entire walkaround to only get to point 7. Now we can shortcut that flow, which I think is really, really great. Walkaround feature. Very important and amazing. We can also tow our aircraft into the hangar or out of the hangar, preferably. So that's really, really nice. And the maintenance report, which showcases the sophistication of the Reality Extension Pack in many ways. Here you can see what all kinds of details or components are accounted for when you are flying the rep. For example, oil types. And we can change the oil types that we are using to fly this 172, and it interacts with the engine behavior. It also reacts to the outside air temperature, just like it is in the real world. Isn't that cool? You can your spark plugs can be fouled, and you need to apply the right procedures to unfoul the spark plugs. Like in the real world, we can also change the types of spark plugs. We can preheat the engine in case it's freezing outside. The whole bunch. I think that's really, really cool. So you already used the battery for a bit, so it's really already a bit discharged. We can recharge it like you are an aircraft engineer, your own aircraft owner, and I think that's really, really cool. So that's the menu. Last button is an automatic engine start, and that's a button that I will never use because that's why I like the rep, right? I like to go through the entire procedure. So that means also, which I think is really, really great, that you cannot start up this aircraft like in the real world, like just switching the ignition switch. You actually need to prime the engine like it should, and if you don't, it doesn't start, but you also damage the aircraft. It's a, well, living, breathing thing. I think that's awesome. Okay, enough said. Let's get flying. So I'm not going to go to the kneeboard. I'm just going to go through my own flows here, and I will just tell about the rep and all of its features while we are going through all the checks. Okay? So here we are outside. As you can see, all the tie downs are there and the covers are there. Let's remove those first. So now with that new feature, I can just hit post flight and click, click, and click, and click, and done. Much more efficient. A great new feature. So we remove the tie downs and the pitot tube cover. That's great. Then let's do a cold and dark check first to make sure that everything is set or no levers or switches are on that shouldn't be on. First off, the parking brakes. Those are set. Great. Well, live vest we don't need, and fire extinguisher, let's just pretend that's in the green. I usually just go through these checks intellectually because I think those are relevant. Doors closed, ELT set to auto. That's also an important remark. The reality extension pack does not change any of the already existing 3D model objects in the cockpit or outside of the cockpit. It does not provide or change up those interactions. So still the ELT is not interactive, still the cabin heat is not interactive, because that's laminar product. SimCoders cannot touch that. So that's just a limitation that SimCoders has to deal with. So they can only add new 3D models to the already existing model. Usually typically those are external objects like the chocks, wheel chocks, and the pitot tube cover and stuff. So just to be clear, that stuff is still not interactive. Unfortunately, but hey, perhaps the new in X-Plane 12, the Skyhawk will be a little bit more interactive. Cabin heat, that stuff not interactive, but let's pretend that we checked. The lever, flap lever is up, and our flaps are also actually up. That's good. Throttle is working, mixture is working, at least my SciTech panel is working. That's actually what I'm checking. My trim is set, fuel tank set to both. Cutoff is in, alternate is in, and our circuit breakers are also nicely tucked in. That's really, really great. Okay, let's also check the control surfaces. Yoke to the right, then that one goes down, that one goes up, down, and up. Makes sense. Elevator. Feels good. And my trim tab, I can see it turn. Yeah, it turns as well. I mean, the trimming wheel can work, but it doesn't mean that the surface is actually changing as well. So it's important to check. And that completes our cold and dark check. Wonderful. Then let's turn on the system. Let's see if the basics are working. We've got enough. Yeah, we've got a charge, obviously. We've also got enough fuel for making this traffic pattern, which is great. And you can hear the battery spool up. A new sound. I think it's a great sound, much better than in the previous version. But we also have 3D sounds. So at least now with Track IR, this is really great. If I turn right, I can hear only the battery on my left ear, as it should. Hoping you can hear that as well through the video. Also, you can hear, right? And again, this is not that educationally relevant, but it just shows care to bring as much flight realism in the cockpit as possible, which is really, really great. Okay, battery spooling up. Avionics on, displays are working. Let's turn down our flaps to see if they go down in sync. They are going down, perfect. VFR, mode C, that's good, blah, 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 blah. Annunciator panel seems to be okay. Airport elevation 75 it should be, so that's okay-ish. And let's look at our gyro drift. And as you can see, not in sync. It should be 75 and not 135. So let's set it. Again, this is the advanced gyro wonder, very important. During your flight, you need to constantly make sure that these are in sync. So yeah, that's an important check. Okay. Done. Fuel quantity, that's good. And obviously our engine is cold and we are draining the battery. Okay, that's about it, I think. Then what we could do is turn on all the lights. Every light. Nav light, strobe light, stick light, landing lights, and also the pitot heat. And now let's go outside to see if those systems are actually working. So, walk around. You can see the temperature of the pitot heat is increasing. It's working. We can just do this with touch, obviously in the real world, but here we can see this thermometer and we can see that it's actually heating up. Great. Lights check. Let's go to the beacon. It's working. Position light at the end is working. Strobe lights, position lights on this side as well. Taxi lights, landing lights. And again, on this side, it's working as well. You can hear it actually turning on. And actually, if I now would move towards the strobe light, you would also hear that the volume would increase, which is really, really nice. And there we are again. Finish, turn all of those lights off because it drains the battery, obviously. Avionics should have been turned off already, and batteries off. And again, our battery is discharging, so if it's discharged enough, we cannot start our engine anymore. Important stuff. So, internal systems are working, but also we know that our lights and our pitot tube heat is working as well. Let's go outside. Walk around, and now the pre-flight. All of this stuff I already did. Let's go to this point. Yeah, so the baggage door. And again, I would love to see that this is interactive, but yeah, that's part of the laminar model. So that's not something that they can change up, unfortunately. So intellectually, we checked that the baggage door is secure. Checking our elevators, and we should also check all of the connecting rods and all of the other stuff, inner parts here. Go up, nav antennas, everything looks good. Rudders, tie-down is removed, ALT antenna looks secure. The flaps have a wiggle, that's good. And again, we should check all of these inner components here as well. Ailerons look good. Tie-down is removed. Yeah, the amount of fuel looks good. Good color, no water contamination. The chocks have been removed, tire condition is good, quality is good, and the color is good as well. Can all change based on your use of the aircraft, which is really, really good. So you can see that it's, over time you need to refuel your engine oil. Refill your engine oil, I should say. And that's important. Cover is removed. Yeah, something that you can enable as well. If oil filter, all that stuff looks good. No dents in the propeller blades. Looks good. Looks good too. And again, you can see still the pitot heat is still a bit warm, but cooling down. Looks good, looks good. Ailerons and wiggle. And chocks removed and looks good. Finish. All right, so we know that we got an airworthy aircraft, an aircraft that's safe to fly. We know that the systems are working, electronic systems are working, the outside systems are there and are working, so we are ready to go. So let's fasten our seatbelts. And I'm such an aviation geek, such a student pilot, flight simulation geek, that I actually have real seatbelts on my office chair here. But I don't care because I'm a complete nerd. So here we are. Let's close the door. And there we are. So let's, well, what's the briefing? Well, what we're going to do is a traffic pattern. Runway 28 is over there. So we're going to taxi to the left over there. Left-hand traffic patterns we request, or not, we're going to request, we're going to say that we're going to make a left downwind departure. This is a non-towered airport, so we need to do our position reports. And we're going to go fly over there and do a stall and then return to the field and enjoy the fact that the reality extension pack exists. That's it. Okay. Briefed, batteries on again. Let's start up our engine. And again, not only, it doesn't suffice to just turn on the to rotate your ignition switch. You need to prime the engine. If you don't do it, or over prime and over flood the engine, it just doesn't work. So that's really great. And if I just now start the engine, it will not start because there is no fuel in the engine. It's actually simulated right now, which is great. So we're going to prime the engine first. A little bit of a throttle in. Again, fuel tanks are set to both. And let's look at the fuel flow gauge here, because there we like to see a little bit of an increase. We're priming the engine, so we need to see a little bit of fuel flow, but not too much, because otherwise we'll flood the engine. And we need to grab our checklist and need to follow the right procedure to unflood the engine. It's all simulated now with the reality extension pack, and that's great. So yeah, a little bit of throttle in, fuel pump switch on. There it is. Mixture full in. 1, 2, 3 seconds long. Cut off on the mixture and turn off the fuel pump. So now there's enough fuel there, hopefully in the engine, to start it up. Again, parking brakes are set. Fuel tanks, yep. No one is walking around. Nope, so clear prop. Mixture full in once it starts. Ignition switch back both. 1200, oil pressure is already in the green. That's good. And let's turn on the alternator. See a rise in the M-meter here. That's good. And we can turn on the avionics. And we can raise the flaps. Looking good. And we should also lean for ground. So if we don't lean the mixture right now, we actually run the risk of fouling our spark plugs. And we see that the RPM is not running that smoothly. And we can actually run into engine trouble. So like real-world pilots, we need to lean the mixture in this case. And it's actually so sophisticated, which is also nice. It's a nice feature that the RPM is actually wiggling here, which is really cool. But you can see if I go full rich, the RPM actually slightly drops. So we need to look for, we need to lean, and see when we see that slight peak of RPM, and that will be our right position for the mixture to know that we will not run the risk of fouling our spark plugs, which is great. It's now simulated. And I do that on 1200 RPM because it's more visible than when I do that on 1000. So once I did, I will go to 1000, not idle, but 1000 to keep the engine warm. If I go idle now, I will also run the risk or increase the risk of fouling my spark plugs, and that will happen. When we're going to do the run up, you will see that the plugs are foul. It's just great, I think. EGT is now also nicely high up, so that's in sync. Okay, now we can set some frequencies. At least we're just going to do a traffic pattern here. So we only need, oh sorry guys, only need a CTAF frequency 1 to 2.8. That's set, that's good. We're not going to listen to ATIS. That's just fine for today. We got perfect flying weather. Yes, again, no enunciated messages. That's good. Airport elevation, that all stuff we already set, and it's still set. Everything is stable. Fuel's still there, and engine oil temperature is slowly increasing. Also very, very important. If we would already go into higher RPM without the engine being warm enough, we also damage the cylinders, and that will affect the flight performance. We will hear it, we will feel it while we're flying. It's a living and breathing thing, that aircraft with the rep, which I think is really, really great. So now at 75, we are allowed to start the taxi, not going to RPM, so not higher than 1400 RPM or so. Heading mark is already set to 2.8, that's good, and yeah, ready to go. So to the left, to the right, and then 2.8. Park and brakes released, brake tests, those are working, great. And there we go. Could already announce that we are taxiing to the runway, but not that important. Nice planes here. Also make sure that our turn indicator and stuff is working, so let's make our turn here. Slip indicator, turn indicator, heading indicator, looks good. You can also hear, very slightly, I don't know if you guys can hear, but if I go idle, you hear that the engine is a little bit more stuttery. It doesn't burn that well, so that's why you rarely go idle on a throttle if you're doing proper engine management. All simulated in the rep. Okay, here we go. 2.8 to the right. Continuing on. Windsock there in the distance. Calm winds, that's good. Very nice scenery here at Bermuda Dunes Airport. I really love to fly in the Palm Springs area. We got Palm Springs International Airport, a towered airport, over to our tail, the west side there, which is really, really cool. And we've got several non-towered airports here, including Bermuda Dunes, but also Thermal Airport, which is over there, over the hangars. Really scenic area to fly. Okay, coming up to the threshold here, we need to do our run-up, but we can only do our run-up if our engine oil is in the green. If not, we might damage the cylinders, like in the real world. And usually we would take a little bit more time in idle condition or running the engine while we are at the ramp and setting our frequencies, but we don't need those right now, so that's why we're quite quick. Well, I think this is fine. We don't have a significant wind, so usually you would point your nose into the wind so it cools the engine while we do our run-up. Again, setting it to 1000, but let's set it to 1200, so we foster that warming up process. Engine is still leaned, that's perfect, but you can see the engine or the oil temperature is not quite in the green. Okay, so let's do another check. Control surfaces, always do those twice because those are quite important, as you can imagine. Looks good. Again, briefing, we're gonna depart runway 28, left-hand traffic patterns, or at least we're gonna depart the left downwind leg. We're gonna go over to that side, do that stall. I can show you slow flight, and then we return to the field and have a great day. Okay, everything else is set. Trim is set. We can set our flaps, 10 degrees of flaps. Just keep our mixture lean here to foster that engine warm-up process. Heading bug is set. Yeah, we're ready to go. We just have to wait. Well, in the meantime, let me just show off photoreal scenery. If you're not flying with photoreal and X-Plane, you're missing something. Let's go outside here. Boom! So, as you can see, I'm flying with photoreal scenery. That changes up your entire experience of flight simming. It's not only a gimmick, it's not only looks pretty. I mean, I think Orbex cannot compete with just photoreal. It's just amazing. And also combine that with really nice free airport scenery, and you're golden. So as you can see, it looks damn pretty. Look at this. But also, as a student pilot, especially as a VFR student pilot while you're doing your CAT ratings on Pilot Edge, you can now use dead reckoning in a much more realistic fashion, using the VFR sectional charts, and you can actually spot landmarks now in a, well, one-to-one, really realistic manner. So that's really, really great. Look at that. Yeah, perhaps our engine is already warm. Hop into the cockpit quickly. Train passing by, or truck? No, train, I think. Engine, yeah, just barely in the green. Alrighty, so mixture full in. Let's go to 1800s. There we go, no uninitiated messages, oil pressure still there, everything is stable. Looks good, left mag. Good enough drop, back to both. Right mag, good enough drop and comparable, good, back to both. Then let's go full idle. No uninitiated messages, no oil pressure things, still in the green. I mean, our vacuum goes outside of the green arc, but that's okay. Not enough suction. Looking good. We got a good engine, guys. Back to 1,000. Okay, so that means that we are ready to go. So make sure that no one is on final. Again, we're flying on Pilot Edge. You never know. Could also be on the wrong side of the airport. I'm just picking 2.8 because usually it's 2.8. And it also favors 2.8 at the moment, even though the winds are quite calm. But just to make sure. Yeah, frequencies are set, ready to go. Flaps are set, trim is set. Let's go, guys. Landing lights on, strobe lights on. There we go. Bermuda Dunes traffic. Skyhawk, Papa Hotel Tango Andy Mike is departing runway 28 for a left downwind departure. Bermuda Dunes. There we go. There's the runway, line up. Again, fully lit up. Corresponds with our heading indicator, and let's go, guys, full power. And again, I'm noticing a nice left tendency here of the aircraft, and the ground handling is much more realistic with the rep. Airspeed's live, engine is still in the green. We've got traffic just in front of us. That's AI traffic. Let's go up a little bit more faster. There we go. So there's AI traffic generated by Pilot Edge, and it's Nordo traffic. It, well, obviously doesn't transmit on the radio, and it just does its own thing. And so as a training environment, I should have noticed that aircraft on final, so I can practice. But clearly I didn't. All right, nose a bit down, VY, already 300 feet high, AGL, so flaps up, nose up a bit. There we go. And again, I think that's really highly recommended to get all of the add-ons to bring that flight realism in your sim. Left turn, a little bit of pedals. Bermuda Dunes traffic. Skyhawk Papa Hotel Tango Mike is turning left crosswind 28 for a downwind departure. Bermuda Dunes. A bit more nose up here. Heading bug is already to the right and already at 1,000 feet, but we can continue our climb because we're leaving this traffic pattern. Sure, no one is on that side. Good. Left pedals again. Good. Keep that nose up. There comes the field to the left. Bermuda Dunes traffic, yellow Skyhawk is, or white Skyhawk is now on the left downwind runway 28 for a downwind departure. So usually I'm flying with a yellow Skyhawk, that's my own livery. I've just chosen this default Skyhawk for demonstration purposes, familiar. And I usually also use in my call sign my color color scheme rather than my registration number, so others can spot me a little bit better. Well, on Pilot Edge, on flying, your livery is not shared online, so it's a little bit, well, fictional and not relevant, but for practice purposes, it's fine. All right, there is Bermuda Dunes. Gaining some altitude here. Let's go to, well, 2,000 is fine. We should actually go to 4,000 to practice our, let's go to 2,500. Overfly the final leg here. Some nice clouds on top of us. Landing lights off. Engine is still looking good. And again, what I also really like in comparison to the default 172 is that the handling of the aircraft feels much more realistic. Also on the ground while taxiing, it feels much more heavy. I've also flown in the real world 172, so I have some experience to compare it to. So that's great. And also just the turning, it feels much more, yeah, realistic. I think that the default 172 feels much more arcadey, much more, a little bit too light. All right, trimming down. We passed the approach course there. All right. No leaning below 3,000 feet MSL. So there we are, just flying a little bit further down northeast here. And then let's do a slow flight and a stall just to see how that behaves. It's much better modeled than the default 172, and I think that's important, especially if you're a student pilot and like to practice those maneuvers. A sip of water here before I do. Oh man, this is fun. Okay. Throttle to idle. Let's go to US 2500. All right. There goes the speed. Increasing that nose. And let's see what it does. Also listen to the stall horn. It's also new sounds, which is great. Nose up, nose up, nose up, nose up. So see that there's some right turning tendency. Yawing tendency. There's the stall horn. New sound, I like it. And wingtip stalls to the left. And well, we can put our nose down and give power. As you can see, the right or the correct wingtip dipped. Usually it's the left wing that stalls first. So the prop wash. So that's good. And a very nice stall horn sound. Well, that's great. That's really, really great. And again, just the handling of the aircraft also in the air. And again, this is really hard to really explicitly demonstrate. One thing that I also really like is the crosswind handling. So the proper dynamics are now there in terms of yawing and forward slipping. That's really, really great. Also, when you do your takeoff, the engine is not that powerful in comparison to the original default 172. It almost felt like a 182 at times to me. So also the engine power is much more better aligned or set. It's great. All right, let's return, guys. Put this baby on the ground. Let's look for the airport. Do another position report here. Entry announcement. Where is it? And again, with photo reel, it's so much harder. So much more harder to spot where the airport is, like in the real world. Let me see. It seems like it's there. The nose. No. Let's keep a low RPM there to get that descent going. Where is the airfield? There, I think. Yep, there it is. I can see aircraft. Okay, hard one to spot. So, because it's left-hand traffic, we cannot just enter right base and land 28. So we need to overfly the field, make a right teardrop to enter the left downwind for 28. That's the proper procedure. And thus, let's do that. Because we're going to overfly the field, I'd like to be at least 1,000 feet, well 500 feet, but at least 1,000 feet above the traffic pattern altitude so we don't fly into anyone. Right, airport is over there, so we're currently northeast of the airport, so let's do a position report right now. Bermuda Dunes traffic, Skyhawk Papa Hotel Tango India Mike is about 3 miles northeast of the airport, currently at 2,000. We're going to overfly the field from the northeast to the southwest and enter the left downwind for runway 28 for a full stop with the teardrop. Bermuda Dunes. A lot of information there. I don't know if the teardrop addition was that relevant, but okay, landing lights on again. Still mixtures full in, parking brakes are released. Imagine that, landing with your parking brakes on. That can happen. Unfortunately, not a good thing. Engine is still looking good. So, the handling is much better. In crosswind condition is much more realistic. Stall behavior is much more realistic. Speeds, more realistic. And plus all of the oil, engine oil types and the engine behavior, icing and stuff. It's the real thing. And therefore, I think if you are serious about your flight simulation and really like to use your flight simulator for training, it's a must-have. I mean this in the most genuine, from flight simulator body to flight simulator body kind of way. It's a must-have. Okay, so you can see the runway over here. I like to get really perpendicular. So we're 500 feet above the traffic pattern altitude. Well, that's okay, but no lower. So let's nose up. Bermuda Dunes traffic, Skyhawk Papa Hotel Tango India Mike is overflying the field from the north to the south at 1,500 feet. We're going to enter the left downwind for runway 28 with a teardrop or full stop. Okey-doke. Still staying on traffic pattern. You can see the ramp there. Peak down. Ah, there it is. Perfect. So we're now overflying the left downwind leg. So now we can start the descent already. Okay. Good. Again, airport is on our tail, a little bit further. Making sure we don't see any other traffic because those are generated here, as you've already seen, on pilot edge. Alright, let's make that turn. So already one notch of flaps in, by the way. So pulling on my yoke, so let's do a little bit more nose up trim. Keep that speed around 90, or 80 plus at least. And there we go. Look at that scenery, guys. Wow, wow, wow. Right, 1,000 feet, AGL coming up, traffic pattern altitude, speed is okay. And there's the runway. And we're now entering on the 45, right? 45. Reduce traffic. Skyhawk Papa Hotel Tango Mike is on the 45 left downwind. 28 for a full stop. Reduce. Good. A little bit closer. Again, the distance from the runway is actually based on a very practical measure, and that is in case of an engine out, can you still make the runway? Usually a half or 1 mile from the airport. And Bermuda Dunes traffic, Skyhawk Papa Hotel Tango Mike is now on the left downwind 28 full stop. Bermuda Dunes. Oh, already overturned there, as you can see with the heading bug. Because we're already midfield, we can already start our descent a bit. There we are. Are we parallel? Well, it seems like we are. That's good. Don't see any other direct traffic on the final. We're on base. That's good. Let's start descending, Tim. Alright, 1700 RPM. Again, landing lights are on, mixtures full in, parking brakes released, fuel tanks, fuel, yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm ready if you are. Alright, left pedals, reduce traffic, Skycock Hotel Tango Mike is turning left base to 8 full stop. Reduce. Speed is in the wide band, very important because I'd like to have 20 degrees of flap soon. And we can only do that while we are in that wide band. Alright, that's our base turn. Again, no one is on final. As far as I can see, there's the runway. A little bit too high. Less power. Might use some forward slipping here, which is also really nice simulated in the wrap. And reduce traffic. Skyhawk Papa Tango Mike is turning final to 8 full stop. Yeah, we're a bit too fast. And one way we can fix that is, for example, forward slipping. So right rudders, left aileron. Just put our butt in the wind, and as you can see, we descend quite rapidly. And keep our speed constant, which is really nice. So there we are. Should not do this in too extreme manner with flaps on, but still. Looking good, looking good. Alright, clean up. Full flaps. A little bit of trimming there. And focus on the far end of the runway. Again, this behavior is so much more realistic with the wrap. Nose up. Ah, oh, beauty. Flaps up. Track that center line. Good. Brake a bit. So I use aerodynamic braking, so I'm pulling on my yoke here to push the airplane down. And let's get off the runway as quickly as possible. And there we are. Butts behind the line. We're reducing traffic. Yeah, Sky Power Hotel Tango Mike is clear of runway 28, taxiing back to parking. Not a yellow Skyhawk. Alright, RPM back to 1000. Let's lean for ground again, something like this, like an inch. Good. Landing lights off, strobe lights off, and that's about it. No one's taxiing here. So brake release, and let's go. Wonderful. So yeah. A lot of stuff is happening under the hood here that the rep is accounting for in terms of engine behavior and stuff, spark plugs, and it's something that I think any serious sim pilot should consider with every flight, and I think it makes flying so much more fun. And also you gain an appreciation for, well, real world flying. Taking care of your airplane. Very nice. Also, in terms of taking care of your airplane, like in the real world, it's actually quite damaging to shut down your engine, but also to start it up with your avionics on, because it might lead to a power surge from the engine to your battery. Because electrical power is drawn from the engine, right? So to prevent that scenario of happening, it's very important that you switch off the avionics before you shut down the engine, or to switch off the avionics before you start up your engine. If you don't, with the rep, you actually run the risk of damaging your electronic system, and it will fail, and it will be kaput, which I think is really great. Again, talking about flight realism. So, avionics are off, cut off, burn every little fuel there in the cylinders, then turn off the spark plugs and then the batteries. Parking brakes are set, prevent cross-feeding, open the door, and there we are. Release our real seat belts here in my freaking nerd chair, and let's also do our proper post-flight checks. Post-flights, for example, the pitot tube cover, the tie-down, this tie-down, that tie-down, and we are finished. And that completes our demonstration of the Reality Extension Pack. Now, I know I could also show you all of the wrong things to do with the Reality Extension Pack. For example, how to file your spark plugs and how to do all of the other stuff that the rep is looking for. But that's something that will make the video much too extensive. I just like to provide you with a fun flight where you can actually see how the rep behaves and make your everyday flight a lot more fun and realistic, I think. All of that stuff is already posted on YouTube, so if you're interested in how to clean up your filed spark plugs, how to do all of the other stuff that you can do with the rep, just browse on the internet and you will find it. I just hope that this is a nice introductory demonstration showcasing the awesomeness of the Reality Extension Pack. On that front, I hope that I have inspired perhaps some of you that the SimCoders is worth visiting. Again, this is also available for other small GA aircraft, so have a look. I believe those are exclusively Coronado aircraft, but also for the default 172, which is the mostly used student pilot airplane. It's wonderful to see that the Reality Extension Pack is also available for the Skyhawk 172. I'm exclusively flying the 172, so that's why I'm a big fan. I hope you have learned something about flying a traffic pattern as well, and taking into account all of the things that any real-world pilot takes into account when making a traffic pattern flight, and the Reality Extension Pack really helps accommodate all of those checks, because now they are relevant. They're not just gimmicks. You should actually do those, and if you don't, you run the risk of engine fires, of crashing, of doing things not the right way, and I think that really adds to the thrill and educational value of flight simulation to develop real-world flight skills. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I'm Tim. I'm the Uncertified Pilot. If you're interested also in the stuff that I'm doing with X-Plane and with the rep, hop over to UncertifiedPilot.com and have a look at my project. And also, you're so welcome to visit my Twitch streams, where you can ask all the questions you have or provide me with all the suggestions you have to make rep better, because I'm also a beta tester and partner with SimCoders. So you're so welcome to jump on board and make this product even better. So again, thank you for your attention, and as always, happy flights and blue skies.